Welcome to The Explainer. So look, right now, everyone across the tech world is absolutely obsessing over these shiny $30,000 AI chips. We see the headlines literally every day about the fastest processors in these massive multi-million-dollar computing clusters. But today, we're going to expose the dirty little secret of the AI boom. Those flashy processors everyone keeps talking about, they're really just the tip of the iceberg. The real story is what's holding them up. And that brings us to our core thesis today. It sounds kind of crazy, right? But the chips are almost an afterthought now. The real battle for the future of artificial intelligence is actually happening in the dark, unglamorous plumbing. We're talking about the hardcore realities of thermal physics, complex material substrates, and intricate memory architectures. Because honestly, if you ignore this hidden infrastructure layer, your $30,000 GPU is just going to overheat, throttle itself, and turn into a very expensive paperweight in under a minute. To figure out who actually holds the real power here, we'll start with AI's dirty little secret, then dive into the liquid cooling mandate. Third, we'll unpack the glass substrate revolution, followed by the high bandwidth memory crunch. And finally, we'll bring it all together to answer the biggest question: who owns the choke points? All right, part one, AI's dirty little secret. Let's look at some rapid-fire market signals from just the past 30 days. The supply chain is screaming right now. TSMC, the absolute giant in chip manufacturing, is guiding for around $40 billion in Q2. And get this, Apple just broke a decade-long streak of exclusivity with TSMC to strike a foundry deal with Intel. Meanwhile, SK Hynix's high-bandwidth memory completely sold out, all the way through 2026. You literally cannot get it. And baseline memory contract prices are climbing 40% or more. We're looking at the most severe, multi-layer bottleneck since the great chip shortage of 2021. But this time, it's not just about fab capacity. It is a fundamental problem of physics. Part two, the liquid cooling mandate. We have to talk about thermodynamics. 2,300 watts. That is the power target for a single NVIDIA Vera Rubin GPU. I mean, think about that for a second. That is more power than a heavy-duty industrial space heater, but it's entirely concentrated on a piece of silicon roughly the size of a drink coaster. A single server rack packed with these chips is now pushing a staggering 600 kilowatts of energy. Because of that extreme heat, traditional air cooling is just, well, it's mathematically dead. You cannot meet the strict global energy efficiency regulations, what the industry calls PUE, at these thermal levels. The math simply doesn't work anymore. It's binary. You have to adopt warm water direct liquid cooling. This is not a nice-to-have upgrade. It's a non-negotiable forcing function. No advanced liquid cooling, you can't host the new hardware, period. And retrofitting legacy data centers to handle this, it is a logistical nightmare. First, you're talking major structural facility renovations, literally tearing down walls. Step two, laying miles of entirely new plumbing and heavy-duty power distribution. And step three, suffering through months of operational downtime. It is a massive, painful undertaking. But if you don't do it, your multi-million-dollar GPU racks are just going to sit idle in a warehouse. But of course, one person's massive structural pain is another's explosive market opportunity. We are looking at a forecasted $27.1 billion market by 2035 for data center liquid cooling. Companies that supply these thermal solutions, like Vertiv, along with the specialized manufacturers over in Taiwan, are perfectly positioned. They are the ones selling the pickaxes in the AI gold rush, for sure. Okay, let's scale way down from massive data centers to the microscopic level for part three, the glass substrate revolution. This is an incredibly fascinating shift. The industry is rapidly shifting away from standard organic materials to glass packaging. Why? It's all about through-glass vias, or TGV. This is a mind-bendingly precise manufacturing process. They use advanced lasers to drill microscopic holes straight through glass panels, which are then filled with metal to create vertical electrical connections. Niche equipment makers like LPKF, who can actually pull off this extreme precision without shattering the delicate glass, are suddenly critical bottlenecks for the entire tech world. Glass is taking over because the architectural advantages are just massive. It offers superior thermal matching, meaning these hyper-hot chips won't literally warp and bend out of shape. Combine that with incredibly low signal loss, much higher routing density, and the ability to process larger panels to cut costs. Actually, manufacturers like Tauntico are aggressively pulling their mass production timelines forward just to meet the insatiable demands of their U.S. clients. Zooming back out to the macro supply chain, we hit part 4, the high bandwidth memory crunch. High bandwidth memory, or HBM, is stacked right next to the processor, and it is the ultimate binding constraint right now. The terrifying reality for AI companies here is the extreme concentration. SK Hynix controls a dominant 57% of the entire HBM market. They practically own it. And the real kicker? Their entire production output for 2026 is completely spoken for, sold out. If you're an AI company trying to plan your next supercomputer and you haven't secured memory from SK Hynix, you fundamentally cannot build your systems. The sheer panic in the market is palpable. Big tech companies are so desperate, they're doing something totally unprecedented, offering to directly fund SK Hynix's production fabs. They're even offering to buy them the massive multi-hundred-million-dollar EUV lithography machines used to print the chips. Using our plumbing metaphor again, it's literally like a home builder paying to build an entire cement factory from scratch just because they can't source enough concrete for the foundation. Which leads us to our final evaluation, part 5, who owns the choke points? Let's bring all these layers together. When we evaluate this complex landscape, obviously TSMC and NVIDIA possess exceptional moats, heavily protected by advanced packaging and massive software lock-in. But think about the infrastructure layer right beneath them. SK Hynix has a heavily cornered resource with their massive yield lead in memory. And infrastructure players like Vertiv have incredibly strong moats simply because everyone is utterly desperate for their data center thermal integrations. The real power has shifted to the companies that make the hardware physically function. If you want to know exactly where this is heading, the upcoming timeline is incredibly tight. In the second half of 2026, the first NVIDIA Vera Rubin server racks will be deployed, testing this new liquid cooling infrastructure at a massive global scale. By Q3 of 2026, we're going to get real clarity on Intel's next-generation manufacturing node for Apple. And by mid-2027, SK Hynix's massive new fab finally reaches meaningful scale. These events will determine if these structural bottlenecks clear, or if the entire AI supply chain chokes under the pressure. I want to leave you with one final provocative thought. We know that heavily concentrated supply chains carry immense geopolitical risk. But as the industry frantically races to diversify out of Taiwan, the sheer physical weight of advanced liquid cooling, glass substrates, and high bandwidth memory are acting as the new gatekeepers. So, who will truly control the underlying power in the next decade of the AI arms race? It proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that the shiny chips are only half the story. Thanks for joining me on The Explainer, and remember to always look